Hare Krishna. So the devotees have requested that we share one of these refresher videos on offering arati to Radha Madhava. Again, it's just simply a refresher on realigning our standards over this 3-year period that we've been worshipping Radha Madhava. So all of the devotees here are really expert pujaris, and it's just some practical tips to be shared just so that we all try and come together around a consistent standard. So the first thing to note is the setup of our arati tray. We can see that we've got all of our items to be offered, and just something practical, which I tend to do, is just to set everything up in clockwise order, just so it's easier to meditate on the items that we're going to offer to the Lord. We don't need to think about which items are going to come next. They're all kind of laid out on the tray sequentially, beginning with our incense, ghee lamp, then pure water, there's arghya in the conch, vastram or cloth, pushpani. We've got our archman cup with pure water, and we've got our bell, which is sitting on an asan, picture of our spiritual master, the asan for standing on, and our jamra and peacock fan. So just a practical note on the asan. So sometimes we see devotees moving the asan with their feet, but actually the etiquette is to move the asan with our hand, which sounds strange because we'd normally think that there wouldn't be an issue with moving something with our foot, particularly as we stand on it. But because this asan represents Mother Earth, then she's sustaining all of our devotional activities, and so therefore she's handled in order to show respect. Often when we move something with our foot, it's because it's a sign of disrespect. We're not necessarily being attentive to what this represents. So she sustains all of our devotional activities, and we take the blessings from our spiritual master and Mother Earth when performing the actual arati to Radha Madhava. And the other practical consideration is the conch and the pot that it sits on. So the pot of pure water is the bigger galash with the wider neck, and the throw-out pot is the one with the narrower neck. And when blowing the conch, before blowing it, we just rinse it through, and then blow. So some devotees often ask about blowing the conch, and the easiest way to blow the conch is just to place the lips gently at the end of the hole, and then make the sound as if you're blowing a raspberry, so like this. And in this way it will just reverberate off the end of the conch and produce a sound. So when rinsing the conch out, again we're just positioning it over the throw-out pot and then pouring the water through, being mindful not to touch the galash to the actual hole of the conch. And then once we've poured the water through, the conch then sits horizontally on top of the pure water. Sometimes we see devotees position the conch this way, but then any kind of residue that's left from blowing the conch will then sit on the end of the conch here. So if we position it in this way, it will fall back into the pot and then contaminate the pure water that's in there. So that's why it's really important that we keep the conch positioned horizontally and stepping back onto the altar with our right foot first. And the same way as when we enter the altar, we ring the bell and draw the Lord's attention and step with our right foot first. Then coming to the table itself, we can then purify our right hand, purify our left hand, right foot, then left foot. Some drops come to the asana itself, and then we would step onto the asana with our right foot first. So that would typically be our setup for offering arati. Before, however, stepping onto the asana, we can purify all of the elements that are on the plate by this Om-Sraya, and if we wish to, Chakra Mudra. And the position of the actual asana itself, some devotees stand very close to the altar to offer the arati, others stand further back. So it's a personal preference, it's whatever you feel most comfortable doing. I personally prefer to stand further away, and that's simply for the reason that if the pujari is quite close to the altar and offering the arati here, then for those that are in the temple room taking darshan, then the pujari can often be distracting or come in the way of that darshan. It's more that the pujari should be in the background serving to allow the devotees to take darshan and really absorb themselves in that darshan. So often I find it's quite distracting for those that are in the congregation or in the temple room if we're offering in this way. But it's a personal preference. Sometimes there aren't devotees in the temple room, and it's always nice to get as close as we can to the Lord. So again, whatever you feel comfortable doing. So I think we'll take a pause here, and then we'll go into the next video, which will be talking about some practical tips with some of the items on the plate. Hare Krishna.